Welcome to worship today. It's good to be with you even in this way. Thank you for your continued support of the church. It has allowed us to continue paying staff during this time and keep everything going in the building, including hosting Family Promise families. We'll be doing that till December, being a drop-off and pick-up place for Meals on Wheels, collecting food for Crossroads Urban Center, and some clothing for the thrift store. We've done that. In addition, we've been the rehearsal site for the Mad Band, who have raised about $3,000 for the Volunteers of America Youth Center over the past couple weeks. The Wesley Bell Ringers have been rehearsing by social distancing and wearing masks when they come in to do that. They recently put together a concert that you can see on the church website. The Scouts are meeting outside in these days. So with your help, the church continues to do different ministries as well as these online services, having the care team meet every other week, coffee hour Zoom meetings on Sunday. This past week, the Thursday morning men's breakfast group met down in a park with everyone wearing masks, and there's a hiking group from the church that goes hiking a couple times a week. The bookkeeping part of the church is being done by Maxine Jones and Kelly Carpenter, and her team of volunteers held the first online vacation Bible school this week with about 70 participants. Sharon keeps the email blasts and newsletters going, and Lita and Vea have continued to watch over and maintain the church so that it looks as good as it ever has. Logan Bingham, our choir director, was tested for COVID this past week. I'm not sure how that test came out, but he was feeling kind of down, so he had that test. But he will be doing the music next week, hopefully. So we continue to do ministry here at Christ United Methodist Church, and we're thankful for your support always. We are in the midst of the yearly food drive for Crossroads Urban Center, and so if you'd like to be a participant in that, just bring food by the church on Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and just leave it by the front door there, and we'll get it down to Crossroads later this week. Today, I'd like to start our service with this piece of music by a men's group called Cantos from Minnesota. It's a song that you will be familiar with, I'm sure. 'Tis a gift to be simple.
A gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free. 'Tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round. Till by turning we come round. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. When true simplicity To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round.
I invite us to pray. May the one whose spirit is with us in every good deed be with all who work for the good of humanity, and who bear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked and take heed and offer a hand to the friendless. May the work of their hearts and hands endure, and may the seeds they sow with their kindness and care bring about the simple but important change the world so desperately needs right now. Amen.
Hi, I'm Kelly Carpenter, Children and Young Family Ministries Coordinator, and this week we celebrated Vacation Bible School. Now, it didn't look like our typical Vacation Bible School with the decorations up in the church and the 130 plus kids and the 50 plus volunteers. This year was virtual. The families logged in every day and watched some videos of ours and some of the fun VBS songs. And then every day we hosted a fun Zoom meeting for the kids to see their friends and ask questions and connect with others. And none of this would have been possible without my amazing volunteers. And I really want to say a special thank you to Kristen Hunter, who led the science, Kay Grimmy, who led Bible stories, Monet Palmer, who helped out with the game section, and Franklin Gell, who helped with audiovisual. This could not have gone off as smoothly as it did, or even at all, without their help. So thank you very much. So every day we had a different story from the Bible. On Monday, we learned about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and how that they wouldn't bow down to King Nebuchadnezzar. Tuesday, we heard about David versus Goliath. And, little David, we all know that story, and the great big Goliath. And yet with 5 small stones, smooth stones, he was able to take down that big giant. Wednesday, we learned about Peter and Jesus when Jesus walked on water, and Peter was able to walk on water. But then when he looked at the storm around him, he started to sink, but Jesus was right there to save him. And then on Thursday, our final day, we had the story of Paul and Silas, that they got put into prison. They started singing worship songs. At midnight, there was an earthquake. They could have gone free, but they stayed. And then they were able to talk to the jailer and the other prisoners about Jesus. Wow, what an amazing week, and interesting learning about our God, and God is with us. And that was just a really wonderful time for the kids and for, I think, us volunteers as well. So thank you, CMC, for your support. And a quick prayer. Dear God, thank you for VBS. Thank you for the participants and their families. Thank you for the volunteers. And thank you for our church family. Have a great week. Bye.
The scripture that I'd like to share today comes from the Gospel of Luke. It's found in chapter 6, verses 43 and forward. It says this: "No good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. Figs are not gathered from thorns, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. The good person out of the good treasure of the heart produces good, and the evil person out of evil treasure produces evil. For it is out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks." For it is out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. The words of Jesus. That line, out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks, I've been thinking about it. And we all know our mouths speak not only our minds, but also our hearts. Sometimes the words echo our emptiness, our loneliness, our neediness, our anger. Sometimes, though, the words echo our joy and our peace and our contentment. We speak out of the abundance of our hearts. What we've got in there spills out here. Someone said the words we speak reveal something of the landscape of our souls. Maybe 2 the words we tweet or post reveal that also. Tom Long is a professor of preaching, one of my favorite preachers. He's been doing it a long time, and he recently wrote, "Some of my female students are kind enough to tell me that when I depart from my lecture notes and speak spontaneously, my language is very male-oriented. Ministers are he, church workers are laymen, God is he." Professor Long says, I respond to all this. Don't blame me. I'm simply using spontaneously, reflexively, the language which I've inherited from my forefathers. He writes, a spontaneous word, a spontaneous gesture can reveal a universe. It's so true, isn't it? In one of the churches I served, there was a longtime member. She was a force to be reckoned with, a force for good. UMW president, longtime Sunday school teacher, staff parish representative, lay member to the annual conference, on and on it goes. In the church on the right-hand side, there were probably 24 pews there, and she would sit right inside the door, I think on the second or third pew in. That was where Edna sat with her husband, Gene, when he was alive. They sat there for decades. It was their place. He died, but she continued to come to church and sit in that place. Sometimes an unwitting visitor would come to church earlier than Edna and sit in that pew before she got there. She would walk in, walk to that pew, look down at the person, and say, "You are sitting in my pew." If you would have asked Edna whether she thinks visitors should be welcomed to church and treated kindly, served in Christian love, she would have answered, of course, to all that. But when it came down to it, she always said, "You are sitting in my pew." And like Tom Long said, a universe is revealed. I don't know how many visitors who never came back because of that gesture, but I'm sure it was a few. A spontaneous gesture can reveal a universe. We speak and act out of the abundance of our heart. In Eugene Peterson's paraphrase of the Bible, called The Message, he writes this in place of that line, out of the abundance of our heart. He writes this: your true being brims over into true words and deeds. The way we are down deep spills over into our words and deeds. I think all of us would agree with that. You might remember earlier in the Gospel of Luke, it says about Jesus when he spoke in the synagogue in Nazareth when he started his ministry. All who heard him wondered at the gracious words which proceeded from his mouth. His gracious words revealed a gracious heart. I wish mine did. Eugene Peterson then says this in The Message. He says, "It's who you are, not what you say and do, that counts." I think I know what he's trying to say, that before we do anything good or bad, we are God's people, the people of God, and that's what counts. But I know, and you do too, that what we do and what we say counts for a lot. I was in high school and was encouraged by my folks to find a job. They said, "Get a job." That was encouraging. So I did. I applied for and was accepted to work for the South Dakota State Library. In those days, it was an old rundown building where they stored thousands and thousands of books and magazines. It had a basement where the cement floors had buckled up and smelled like a root cellar, and an upstairs that had what seemed to be a single light bulb trying to light up 10,000 books. I was one of the shelvers for the state library. In time, I worked my way up the library ladder and was promoted to assistant film checker and cleaner. The library had a few hundred films that they would provide to folks, schools, different places. And I was assigned to work with a man named Howard. Howard was near retirement. He used a cane. He was a big, lumbering, slow-speaking, slow-acting sort of fellow. A lifelong bachelor. He lived with his mother. We were, he and I, to put it mildly, living in two different worlds. Me, a high school senior. Him, this person ready to retire. And it would have been, I think, difficult to find two people more oddly matched, but there we were, working together, checking those films. Howard trained me to work on this giant film cleaning machine. He patiently showed me how to thread the film through the machine and make sure the film was being cleaned and maintained properly. When there was damage to the sprockets of the film, some of you will know what that means, he showed me how to use this little film splicing machine and how to use special glue to put the film back together. We got along well, Howard and I. Pretty soon he didn't have to watch over me to see I was doing it correctly, and he was able to work on other projects. When I graduated, I received cards and letters from family members, of course, friends of the family. They'd sent money and all that. And Howard gave me a card that had $5 in it. I'm sure I received more money from different folks, but I remember that card and that $5. One simple gesture, but I remember it still. The abundance of a heart. This week, I was driving in Cottonwood Heights and I noticed a movement on the side of the road, on the sidewalk on my left. And it was a mom who was walking. She was pushing a stroller. And in front of the stroller was a little girl. She was maybe 2 or 3 years old. She knew how to walk. I could tell that. But she wasn't really good at running quite yet. It's really stiff. And she was dressed in green. And she had her arms up like this. And I noticed that she was running down the sidewalk toward another little girl who was maybe 4 or 5. And she was running toward the younger girl with her arms outstretched too. It was a real life reenactment of that viral video that you've all seen of those two little boys, one black and one white, who run toward each other and hug. But I saw it in real life, in real time with these two little girls. And their faces were beaming like they hadn't seen each other in days and days, which they probably hadn't. That simple gesture lifted me for the entire week. Out of the abundance of our hearts, we can do things and say things that add a great deal of goodness to the world. I know we can. I hope that I do that, and I hope that you do that this week. A simple thing. Tis a gift. Amen.
'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free. 'Tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right,